Welcome to Gene's Reviews, where I basically do whatever the hell I want. Hello everybody, scary video in my car on this Friday. Today we're going to do one from a new channel though. This is called The Scary Cherry, is the name of the channel. And this is the house that should have never existed. So let's do this.
These houses have gained notoriety for their paranormal activity, with countless reports of ghostly sightings, unexplained phenomena, and otherworldly occurrences. Some of these houses have a long and tragic history, while others are more recently haunted. From ancient castles to modern mansions, we've compiled a list of the most chilling and terrifying haunted houses from around the world. Join us as we delve into the mysteries of these haunted dwellings and learn about their history, legends, and stories. These are the 20 most haunted houses on Earth.
You never know where you might be living.
Number 20. The Red House. We'll begin our haunted journey in Italy, a country where many haunted locations can be found due to the vast and complicated history that the country has.
And it's real old.
To be more specific, we're beginning with Villa del Vecchio, also known as the Red House. To be clear, it's called the Red House due to the peeling paint that gives it a red exterior. It's not called the Red House because of all the blood that was shed within, although it is fair to think that might be the case given that it's a haunted house. But the reason that it ends up on this list is because there were a series of strange things that happened in this place, and thus it's been left undisturbed despite many wondering how many presences are there. The house is on Lake Como.
It'd be an awesome
built by
place
Count
to
Felix
explore.
de Vecchi. He commissioned it to be a summer home for himself and his eventual family, which included his wife and daughter. When they were there together, they had many happy times and often used it as a respite from their many travels across the country. But in 1862, everything changed. The Count had left his wife and daughter alone in the villa, and when he returned, his wife was murdered and his daughter was missing. He tried to find his daughter, but to no avail, so less than a year later, the Count took his own life. The house went to the Count's brother, who kept it for a long time before it lapsed into a state of disrepair. Yet the house remains today, and some say that the spirits of the Count and his family are there and lurking.
I was going to say,
some
maybe they're still there
and say that it's
altogether
the
now.
house that should have never existed, but whether that's fair to the Count or his family is up to you to decide. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now, or this centipede will crawl on your face.
There's a few different channels that have this same type of thing. They must be run by the same people.
Now it's time for the sweet topic. This is the house that should have never existed. Deep in the heart of Italy lies a remote house that has gained a reputation as one of the most haunted places in the world. Local legend says that the house is cursed and that anyone who enters will be plagued by visions of ghosts and other unexplainable phenomena. Despite this warning, a group of curious investigators decided to spend the night in the house to see if the rumors were true. But as soon as they entered, they were confronted by a barrage of terrifying apparitions, and none of them managed to stay inside for more than a few minutes. The mystery of the haunted house continues to baffle and terrify anyone who dares to enter. As always, let us know your thoughts in the comments section down below using the hashtag #SweetTopic. Number 19. Lalaurie Mansion. Now we'll head to New Orleans, where you'll find many people who believe in spirits and ghosts that may lurk in certain places. And if you think that there is more than one haunted place in that city, you'd be right, but the one I'm talking about here is the infamous Lalaurie Mansion. The house was owned by Madame Delphine Lalaurie, who was not the sweet woman that she tried to portray.
She had a bunch of slaves.
On the surface, she seemed like another rich lady of New Orleans.
I wonder if that's the one that Nicolas Cage bought. He bought one.
Get-togethers at her family's home. But when you dig deeper, you see that there was something very cruel with that woman. For example, she had 3 husbands that we know of, and all of them died in mysterious ways, with the third one drawing the most attention. Yet it was a fire at the Lalaurie Mansion that would cause the paranormal community to rise up. A fire forced people to look deeper into the home, and it's there that it was revealed that Madame Lalaurie had locked up and abused slaves. The Madame fled the mansion, and the place was repurposed twice over, but that's where the haunting things started. It first became an apartment complex, and a tenant was brutally murdered within. Then it briefly became an all-girls school, and the students there were known to act very strangely. Some say that the spirits of the slaves who were hurt and there roam the mansion and infect others around them. As a result of all the spooky tales, the mansion is one that you can visit today during tours of New Orleans and hear all the legends of what happened inside. Whether you believe it all or not is, of course, up to you.
That's a really
Number
sad
18,
story for all those
Bhangar
people.
Fort. We'll now jump
This
from
one
New
I've heard
Orleans
of.
to India, where a haunted fort awaits us. The Bhangar Fort was built in 1573 AD, but the curse starts not with the fort, but with a princess. She was incredibly beautiful and naturally had suitors come from all walks of life to court her. One of those people was a practitioner of black magic who tried to use a spell to make her fall in love with him. She realized the deception, though, and threw the bottle back at him, which turned into a massive boulder and killed him. Don't think about it, just accept it. But before he died, he cursed her and her family, and soon a war would break out that would take her life. It would also take the lives of many in the army that was on her family's side, but the curse didn't stop there. Because of the events that happened, the lives that were lost couldn't be reborn, and the princess was included. The fort is
That
full of
flashing was the
ghosts and
video
those
for
who
some
died,
reason. I don't know
and
what-
any attempts
what that
to fix it
was.
up, such as building a roof, is met with instant disaster. Many other things contribute to its haunted nature, which includes how the villages that surround it are uninhabited, and that was partially due to a famine that occurred that forced the people to leave to survive. So, no matter what version of the tale you believe, the fact is that this fort has seen some troubled times and a lot of loss. For all we know, it was all of these things combined with some others that led to the curse that still haunts it to this day. Number 17. Monte Cristo Homestead. Is India not to your liking? Well, how about we head down under to find a haunted place in Australia? The good news is that this haunted place is a full-on homestead. So what could have happened here to make it haunted? Well, it is a bit of a story. Christopher William Crawley first built the mansion in 1885, where he lived with his wife Elizabeth, along with their 7 children and a series of servants. Crawley was a wealthy businessman who was so successful that he was able to retire early enough and focus on building his new home with his family. But not long after
can't
the family and their servants moved
understand
into the location, things
having
began
servants.
to happen.
I just
One
don't
servant
get it.
fell off the second-story balcony and died.
can't do it
You
yourself,
can still
why
see
do
a
it?
stain on the ground
You know?
where bleach was used to remove the blood. Then one of the staff accidentally dropped one of Crowley's infant children down the stairs and they died. A couple known as the Ryans bought the estate and renovated it, and soon their children lived there as well. That would cause problems because the family repeatedly noted the paranormal activities that would happen in the place. Members of the family would hear their names called out, but no one was there to speak to them. Some of the children kept seeing old-fashioned figures throughout the house or could feel cold hands on their shoulders. Many ghost hunters have come to the Monte Cristo homestead to see what they could experience, and many of them have reported hauntings of some manner. They've recorded voices talking when there was no one else there and mysterious footsteps walking
So
the
it has
halls.
been
Is the
explored.
Crowley family and their servants still roaming the halls? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Number 16. Ancient Ram Inn. We're off to England next for easily one of the most famous haunting stories you're ever going to hear. The ancient Ram Inn was built in 1145, and to this day, many people claim that it still has supernatural energy channeling into it. Whether you believe that or not, it's hard to deny
Those
that
old
the inn
houses
has
would
had
have
a
to.
lot of weird
They'd
things
have to.
happen inside. As for why it's haunted, there were a series of things that were said to have occurred there. One of which was that in the 1500s, a woman briefly took refuge at the inn as she was being accused of being a witch. This was common during the time, as anyone who did not practice Christianity was deemed unclean. The woman was burned at the stake, and many claim that her spirit still haunts one of the rooms. Eventually, in the 1960s,
No
a man
freedom
named
of
John
religion
Humphreys
then.
bought the inn and made it his home. He was thanked for that by being dragged out of his bed by a demonic force on his first night there. That wasn't his only haunting, as they got so numerous that his wife and daughters fled him and the inn so that they could get away from the spirits that allegedly stalked him.
I
Humphreys
think
was so dedicated to the house
first
that he
time it drugged me
continually
out of bed,
searched it
I'd be
for
gone.
signs of what was causing the hauntings. He found the bones of children underneath the staircase. He found signs of rituals and sacrifices, and a lot more. It would appear that this place welcomed evil in many forms, and that the remains of those that were hurt by these actions were quite significant in number.
Wow.
In other words, if you're looking for an inn to stay at, don't let it be this one. Number 15. Mary King's Close. There are some places in the world where the hauntings are caused not necessarily by malicious intent, but are the victims of circumstance that couldn't move on. Mary King's Close in Edinburgh is a great example of that. During the 16th and 17th centuries, the place known as Mary King's Close was home to a bunch of families, which doesn't sound all that bad, except that those families were all infected with the plague. That was where they went to reside so that they could not infect other people. The Black Plague was one of the deadliest
Sucks.
outbreaks
Just
the world
go
had
there
ever
to
seen,
die.
so people went to extreme lengths in order to stay safe. Long after the families had passed on, the plague stopped and the homes were sealed away, which usually would be a good thing if they weren't still inhabited by the spirits of those who were left behind. For example, there was an event in 1992 when a psychic was able to tour the buildings in the close. At first, nothing spectacular happened, much to the psychic's dismay. But then, as she entered a room, she felt a presence that made her feel many different emotions. Then, as she tried to leave, something grabbed onto her and tried to keep her there. That spirit was allegedly a young girl named Annie. That child was apparently left behind by her parents, and her spirit now resides in the place.
Probably scared.
Since then,
Doesn't know
many
where to
people
go,
have gone
what
on
to
a
do.
tour and said that they felt the presences within the close. It wasn't Annie every time. Given the pain and suffering that people in that close went through during their time there, many people feel that their spirits have lingered as they didn't have the closure to pass on. Number 14. Akershus Castle. Have you ever wanted to go to Norway? Well, then let's head there to look at Akershus Castle. Who doesn't love a good castle, right? But I also forgot to mention, it's potentially a haunted castle.
So Norway.
The castle was built as both a fortress and a place to house the royals of the nation. The good news is that the place was built really well, and as a result of that, it never fell to enemy forces while in a fight. The bad news is that over the course of time, it did become a place where death occurred a lot. That includes World War II, where the Norwegians surrendered the fortress to the Germans to avoid conflict. As a result of that, the place became a prison and execution spot for the Germans, and eventually the Norwegians continued to use it as a prison
Lot of
and
spirits
executed
there,
many
then.
traitors within its walls. That's where the hauntings come in, because over the years there have been several reports of whispers and scratching along the fortress walls. Many guards have noticed weird anomalies, like the sensation of being pushed while alone on duty. Perhaps some of the people who were contained and died there still linger on, trapped within a void between the realm of the living and the dead. Or perhaps people are imagining things happen. You just never know. Number 13. Chateau de Brissac.
Oh, you
France
said
is up
that easier
next,
than I
and we
did.
have yet another haunted castle for
Or than
you
I
to
could.
enjoy. This castle's history is honestly quite complex, as it was built to be the tallest castle in France and then had many different owners over the years due to the changing landscape of the nation. That also included being owned by many different men named Charles, many of whom were rulers at one point or another. And one of the most infamous residents of the Chateau de Brissac is the La Dame Verte, or Green Lady, who is the chateau's resident ghost. The Green Lady is said to be a ghost of a woman by the name of Charlotte de Breze, who was the illegitimate daughter of King Charles VII and his mistress Agnes Sorel. But that's not where things went wrong. It went wrong when she would be forced to marry a nobleman named Jacques de Breze. The two were not a good fit and had wildly different personalities, and that led them to sleeping in different rooms. One night, while Jacques slept, a servant came in and said that the Lady Charlotte was having an affair in her room. Jacques rushed there to see for himself, and surely enough, she was caught in a tryst. And so, in a furious rage, he murdered the both of them. Shortly afterwards, it was said that the place was haunted by the Green Lady, and Jacques moved away soon afterwards. He might have been able to leave, but the spirit of the Green Lady lives on, so to speak.
That would be so
Number
bad
12.
back in those days to have to go
Winchester
through an
Mystery
arranged
House.
marriage.
The Winchester Mystery House is easily one of the most famous haunted houses in the world and is a place with one of the most curious histories you'll ever hear. The tale begins with Sarah Winchester, who was the wife of the man who made the legendary Winchester rifle. After seeing a medium, she was told that she was going to be haunted by the people who died by her husband's rifle. That really is a terrible thing to hear. So, using the wealth that her late husband had granted her, she bought a plot of land in San Jose, California, and set out on a mission to make a house where the spirits couldn't locate her. To do this, a 38-year construction project began that eventually led to the construction of 160 rooms, 2,000 doors, 10,000
and a lot of them lead nowhere.
Stairways, 47 fireplaces, 13 bathrooms, and 6 kitchens. Why all of that? Well, because it was Sarah's hope that there would be enough places to go and hide that the spirits could wander around the house, simply get lost, and thus not be able to find her. The irony is that despite pouring millions into the home and it taking a really long time to make, she never got to live in the building because she died before it was completed. Even with all of her precautions, it said that there are still spirits who wander around the place. You can go on a tour of the house today if you want. Just be careful where you go, because the house is more of a puzzle box than it is a building.
Right.
Number 11. Myrtle's Plantation.
I've heard of that.
We'll race now from the west coast of the United States back to the south, where specifically we're heading 30 miles north of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Here in St. Francis,
a lot of sins in the south during the Civil War and everything.
Ghosts are said to roam the grounds. It's pretty bad considering the plantation is a bed and breakfast now. The mansion used to be owned by Frances Kermeen and her former husband. The former partners went and visited the plantation on a vacation and then decided that they were going to buy it. Can you tell that was a bad decision on their part? Fast forward 10 years and the couple divorced, leaving the house behind. Frances was so rocked by the events that she witnessed there that she felt that it was the most haunted building in the world. On her second evening there, she said that someone tried to break into her room despite no one being there. She also had a ghost looming over her, and it still wasn't all the events that were said to have gone down. Over the course of the plantation's history, there were multiple deaths, murders, violent altercations, and slavery. And when you mix all of that into one place, you've got a spot that is primed for being haunted by multiple spirits, which many do believe exist there.
Yeah.
Number 10. Morris Jumel Mansion. You may think that a place like New York City would be immune to hauntings due to its megacity construction, but
no, I wouldn't think that.
There are hauntings there, and one of the spots is the Morris Jumel Mansion. The Morris Jumel Mansion has stood in New York City since before the Revolutionary War. Built in 1765, the house has served as a war room for General George Washington and a home for Aaron Burr. So it is full of history, amongst other things. Those who live in the house to maintain it have repeatedly said that they've heard voices in various places.
I'd love to go there.
Former bedroom of Aaron Burr. They each have an interpretation of what's said, but between the voices, the random footsteps, objects moving around on their own, and more, many people believe that it's a haunted place. Even CBS News checked it out to see if it was haunted. Number 9. The Hout Mansion. Over in Michigan, you'll find the Hout Mansion, which many considered an incredibly haunted spot. The mansion lasted for a while before being shut down, and that's when the problems began, because there were bodies that were found in the basement. What's more, the bodies had very odd circular markings on the torso area that nobody could explain. The house was so perfect in its haunting nature that it was put in as part of Wayne Manor in Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. So yes, it's so haunted that Batman resides there, and that makes perfect sense. Obviously, the ghosts wouldn't harm Batman, as he knows how to harm the ghosts. Seriously though, when you find bodies in the basement of your place, that's an instant sign that you may need to get the heck out of there. Number 8. Villisca Axe Murder House.
Yeah, they've made a couple movies about this.
What kind of unspeakable event
I heard they were really
bad, called the Villisca Axe Murder House? I'm just struggling to find the answer here. Perhaps you could help me out. Seriously though, in this place in Iowa, there was indeed an axe murder. You see, in 1912, an 8-person murder took place, and it was simply never solved.
I thought I heard somewhere that it was like
Every
an
lead
employee.
and suspect led to nothing,
of the
and
guy
as a
who
result,
lived in the
many
house.
believe that the house is haunted by the spirits of those who died that night in the axe murder. It also doesn't help that the new tenants who bought the place to restore it to its old glory didn't realize that they had purchased a home that featured a bloodbath inside of it. Fast forward to now, and it's a paranormal hotel. It's true, you can pay to stay there so that you can try and commune with the spirits around the place. And
That sounds
good
cool
luck
if you're
with
ever in
that.
Iowa.
Number 7. Palacio de Linares. How about a more exotic location for our next hunting spot? In Spain, there is a place called the Palacio de Linares. It's a former home of the Marquis of Linares, who lived there with his family. Eventually, they passed on, and the place went on to multiple owners before being abandoned for some time. However, it would be eventually bought and was turned into something called Casa de America. That's when the problems began, because the workers for the project kept encountering things that could not be explained. They kept hearing voices and noises in empty rooms, doors opened and closed on their own, and there was even a life-size dollhouse that many odd things were said to have happened. The events got so numerous that the media
Life-size
picked up on it and
dollhouse.
wondered about the ghost of Linares themselves. Number 6. The Amityville House. Now it's time to talk about this place.
I was wondering if that one was going to be on there.
One where a young man named Ronald DeFeo Jr. killed his parents and siblings in a night of terror that still confounds people to this day. The murder itself was brutal, but it was what happened afterwards that led to the paranormal nature of the place. Because 1 year after the murders, the house was put up for sale and was purchased by a couple, but as they lived in
George
the
and
house,
Kathy
paranormal
Lutz.
activity occurred all around them and they quickly left. It was this activity that led to the Amityville horror movies and legends that encompass the place. In fact, the legends were so engrossing that they had to remodel the outside of the house and change the address just so people wouldn't be scared off. Number 5. Rose Hall. Jamaica is another place that you might think is immune from the effects of hauntings
Oh, no,
due to the fact
no,
that,
no.
well, it's Jamaica. It's a pretty chill place.
Voodoo.
Even the most chill of places have histories that'll make you shiver. In this case, that would be the infamous occurrences at Rose Hall. At one point in time, the place was filled with over 250 slaves, which is bad enough, and was run by a voodoo witch.
There you go.
There was a woman there named Annie Palmer, and she practiced voodoo. She moved to the hall with her husband and then murdered him. Married 2 more times, and allegedly murdered them as well. Oh, and she abused or killed many of the slaves that worked there.
Man, she's
Eventually,
not a
they
very
took her
nice
out,
person.
But her spirit lived on. For proof of this, you need only to look at the entrance hall to the building, as many people have taken her picture and hung it up on the walls. Number 4. Lizzie Borden House. Here's a fair warning, this is another axe story. It's really weird we're having so many of them.
Lizzie Borden took an axe.
This is the tale of Lizzie Borden from Massachusetts. She was an upstanding young lady in the late 1800s where she lived with her biological sister, father, and her stepmother, but she didn't like her stepmother that much and felt that the woman had married her father for his money and that was it. As time went on, discontent grew between the parties, especially when Lizzie's father gifted her stepmother a lot of things that would limit her inheritance. So she allegedly got an axe and hacked her parents to bits. The irony is that she was tried for the crime and acquitted.
Right.
The public never forgave her, though, and the stories of the hauntings within the house have made it a popular
You think she
ghost
did
tour.
it? I do.
Number 3.
I think she did it.
The Whaley House. Now we're off to San Diego to see the Whaley House, one that's said to be one of the most haunted places in the world due to the number of spirits that it's collected over the years. It started out small with a man being hanged on the premises for crimes that he committed, and then one of the Whaleys died inside of it, and the death count kept going up from there. The family eventually moved away after a fire, but then came back and they weren't alone when they arrived. To this day, people claim to have noticed paranormal activity like babies crying or smelling French perfume from one of the ladies of the house who had died there, and so on and so forth. There was even movies that were made about the hauntings within the place.
I haven't heard of them.
Number
I'd like
2,
to.
the Molly Brown House.
This is one I've never heard of.
Under other circumstances, we'd be talking about the positive experiences of the people that lived within the house. You see, within this place was Molly Brown, one of the survivors of the Titanic, and a woman who was dubbed Miss Unsinkable due to her ability to
the unsinkable Molly Brown. Yes,
look it up. It's true. Eventually, she married a miner, and they bought a house in Colorado, which is now known as the Molly Brown House, due to the hauntings that inexplicably go on there. Employees of the museum note that many of the light bulbs have a tendency to become undone. Some refuse to turn on properly at all.
The Unsinkable Molly Brown was a movie with Debbie Reynolds.
They're even screwed in. Other times they'll notice that the furniture has been mysteriously rearranged, and sometimes they'll even see an apparition of a woman in Victorian clothing doing the rearranging, though no one can tell if the spirit is Molly Brown herself or someone else. Number 1. Buckingham Palace.
Oh, there you go.
Are you surprised? Well, you shouldn't be. Buckingham Palace is older than you may realize, and there have been more things going on
full
in there
of ghosts
than the royal
and
family would want to
reptilians,
admit,
if you want to
like
believe
how it
some
was built
people.
on top of a monastery, and that people have claimed seeing robed monks roaming around the place, or how there have been deaths within the palace, like the secretary to Prince Edward VII. Plus, with the death of Queen Elizabeth II, you have to wonder if her spirit might be found wandering the halls. A royal ghost? Well, why not? And that's all from the realm of allegedly haunted places and the histories behind them. After hearing all of these stories, do you think that some...
Well, that was kind of cool. I like old history, stuff like that. I don't know if you guys do. I hope you do. But that was the house that should have never existed. I don't know why they called it that, because they mentioned 20 different houses. That's from The Scary Cherry. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Now it's time for a joke. It's time for a joke to brighten your day. My wife wants me to blow air on her every time she overheats. But honestly, I'm not a fan.